All right, so as I wrap up this turf and surf stage, I wanted to talk real quick about the idea of imposter syndrome and kind of how I've been in that mind frame over the last couple weeks because as you will see, my performance has been really well. This is the um, 450 to 570 group. My Zwift racing score right now is 509, and I feel like it's been going up and up and up, and I feel like in a way I felt like my performance hasn't gotten better, but I've been winning races or I've been getting on the podium. I've been, in this case, top 10, crossing the line in seventh place there, um, in a group, in a range that's a lot of Bs. And I'm not quite there yet in terms of pace group because I still have, as you can see, just over my shoulder, my 5 minute power there is at 4.0, my 20 minutes at 3.3. I did a lot of effort on this race, which is why I didn't really give a strong sprint at the end of it. But what's been happening is I feel like, I don't belong in these groups. I feel like I've not, earned my way there and kind of, in a way, feel like I am racing against great racers and great riders, but my performance hasn't matched to the level that I feel like it. And so in this race, I actually rode with the Pinarello Dogma F 2024 and the NB 89 wheels. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted to eliminate the idea that my bike was the reason for my good performance. And so when I crossed the finish line in seventh place, especially being able to take two places back on the line, uh, that really made me feel like, you know what, like I do deserve to be here. I do deserve to be in this category because I have performed to the level that requires me to be in this category. And so I wanted to throw that out there because the next example that I'm going to showcase here, which is the Dirty Crabz ladder race, you'll see that, you know, I am getting better. My performance is getting better. I might not be at the numbers that I'm expecting myself to be at with respect to my 5 minute power, but my consistency and ability to put out higher power is definitely there. So just wanted to throw that out there as I switch gears into this ladder race. All right, welcome back to another club ladder race. This is the Dirty Crabs versus the Herd Waffle Warriors, and I've got to say, this ain't no chicken and waffle race and any other waffle pun you can think of, because let me tell you, they brought the heat. They went into the fire and came out victorious. I will spoil it from the get-go, but how they managed to beat us was absolutely impressive because they played this race absolutely smart. So if you take a look at the racers that they have in the race, um, they've got some pretty strong guys. Our numbers are probably just about as matched as theirs, with their top guys being pretty strong in the, sub 5 minute category. And then at the 5 minute, we're kind of all a little bit even. Um, right around 5:20 minutes, we're all pretty much the same. There's one guy that they have on their squad that, really is unfortunately the weak link for them. But again, they play their strategy well, and so us having, two, strong riders, in me and Riz, and then Doug also being another strong rider, and Tommy and Preston. They don't their numbers don't show, but they're also pretty strong, and so you'll see how that plays out in the race. But again, if you look at their team is pretty evenly stacked. Lots of strong riders, and proved, they proved why they got the squad they did. And so as we get going here, we're leaving the Watopia beachfront area on the triple twist course, which takes us out to Jarvis, loops back around the Zwift KOM, and then we end past the Jarvis sprint. And now, when I first looked at the course itself, the route itself ends on the Jarvis sprint. Unfortunately, I didn't know that at the time. So again, spoiler alert, my final sprint um, was not ideal in how I performed. And so let's just get through this part here because basically up until we hit Jarvis, we are all staying together and on Discord. If you want to hear the actual conversation on Discord, be sure to check out Riz's channel. He um, captures the audio for Discord so you can hear the live, essentially live race tactics and our conversations of what we want to do, how we want to handle this. And so you see one of their guys is pushing off the front early, and Bray being a strong racer who I've raced with before, um, we knew that hey, if he wanted to go off and kind of burn himself out, let him go for it because at the end of the day, we know looking at the numbers we have the stronger sprinters, but they overall as a squad are more evenly matched than we are. And so, you know, we uh we took the opportunity to just kind of, sit in a little bit, let them do some work as we start to get to Jarvis. Again, we're all still together. No big deal in how we're racing this. For some reason I just noticed my sauce shows a group of two off the front. Oh, that's right. Riz and Bray went early. So Bray went early, and then Riz bridged up to him to catch up. And so I apologize for missing that. But Riz and Bray are basically off the front ahead. And, we just kind of let them stay out there. The rest of us stay together as a group of eight. And then as we start to hit Jarvis, you see two guys start to push off the front. And then their third guy coming up and starts to push off the front. So I'm like letting the team know, like, hey, they're pushing, like they're bringing up three more of their guys. And so we start to push up hard. You see Doug kind of uh, there behind me. And at this point, we're starting to catch up and bridge to Riz and Bray. And so I'm letting Riz know that, hey, we're right on your six. And we are coming up hard. And they are coming up with four guys now, essentially. Bray up front, and then the three guys that pushed hard on this climb. So me and Doug are doing the best to kind of hold with them. They start to push harder. And so I do the work to, as soon as I get up on the top of Jarvis, do the work to start to bridge again, because them having three riders up the road puts us in a pretty precarious spot. And this is where I say their strategy played out really well. Whether they meant to do this or not, it seemed like they did, but their strategy played out well because now it is, right now 4-on-2. You can see, Doug is about 15 seconds behind because they lit up that climb. I actually got my second best um, time up the Jarvis climb because of them. And so we did our best, Riz and I did our best to stay on, but now it's essentially 4-on-2 for, you know, what we thought would be the rest of the race. And so as we start to make our way back down the climb, we know that this could be a scenario kind of like the Tour de France with Primoz Roglic and um, Jonas Vingegaard, where them two were attacking Tadej Pogacar and just that continuous, relentless attack. And so Riz and I are talking, and my brain is kind of going in that direction. Like they could easily, launch attack after attack after attack. Now I don't know the numbers of the guys specifically that we're riding against right here, but I know they're obviously their four strongest guys. Again, because they made that climb pretty hard. And so as we leave Jarvis, you see that they launch. First guy launches an attack. Riz covers. I cover Riz to catch back on, and then I start to ease off because again, I don't want to go off the front and keep motoring, knowing that they've got four guys right behind us. And so as we make our way back up the volcano, again, they start to push a little bit, and it basically stays like this for a little bit, where it's attack after attack. So I go off the front just to kind of, keep myself in a position where I can cover any of their moves. Bray pushes up again, and me and Riz kind of, follow through. And as we start to get back into heading towards the S's, things start to calm down a little bit. But again, we are, Riz and I are basically going back and forth talking like, hey, when do we attack? What are we looking at covering? Um, you know, do we want to let one of their guys go up the road and see how the rest react? As we start going through the S's, I'm letting Riz know like, hey, this next hill is probably a good place for them to attack, especially if their whole squad can push up. So you see one of their guys is staying off the front for a little bit, but ultimately eases back. And then as we start to hit the climb, you see the power start to come up. One of their guys came from the back, and Riz covered it perfectly. And then I pushed through Riz and just kept going. He's like, hey, just keep going, keep putting pressure. As we start to cross the bridge, again, they caught up with, very little ease. And so I start pushing again. And at this point, I'm like, I'm going to push and I'm going to push hard. I'm going to see how long I can hold this, but how hard I can stretch their team out. And so as you see, I'm staying off the front. I am, panicking a little bit or panting a little bit because I'm, going as hard as I can. But we end up dropping Bray on this, on this attack through the S's and into the backside of the Zwift KOM, which for us, that felt good because we're like, all right, now it's 2-on-3. The last three guys, we can really see how they perform because they really weren't the ones doing the attacking. You see Riz go off the front a little bit. I start to push. I end up falling back behind a little bit on this climb. I ultimately was in the wrong gear and didn't push as hard as I thought I needed to. And so as everybody comes up the backside of the KOM, I push a little bit harder just to make sure I stay on and end up catching up and push through as best I can while trying to get some rest, get some water in my system, because we still have a long way to go at this point in the stage. At least that's what it felt like. And so as they push forward again, I, give a quick kick to get into the back of this group. And I know that at this point I'm kind of easing, I'm easing my power a little bit because they're not pushing so hard that I can't stay on terms with them. And so as we cross the KOM, I start to, come down the hill and, I'm holding on. I kind of end up pushing through the group unintentionally. You see, I'm soft pedaling, but I end up, pushing through and, super tucking. And as I'm super tucking, I'm starting to actually build a little bit of a gap. Not very far, 15-ish meters, so not a huge gap. So Riz is like, hey, if you can push, push. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. I'll push. So I start to ramp up my power as I get off the back or off the bottom of the KOM. Launch a little bit of a sprint to see, where they're at in terms of their willingness to push. Right now, I've got about a 2-3 second gap and still, bridging up. EK decides to launch a little bit of a push there to catch back up, and you can see that, they are. You can see their numbers kind of flashing into orange and then coming out, flashing into orange, coming out, and that, I'm looking at that in real time and seeing like, all right, I can push, but I'm, like I was telling Riz, I'm like, I'm gonna hold the mid twos, somewhere in the twos, because at this point I can't push to the finish. I just don't have the power. And then I see EK come up behind me, and that was kind of, where I left it as like, hey, I'll push a little bit until until these guys catch back up, and then as they catch up, I'll just kind of stay with the group. Um, because from this point on, we're kind of talking about what needs to be done in order to kind of finish this race. We know it's still 4-on-3. We've got, two of their guys are um, essentially behind. Actually, it's 2-on-2 right now. So two of their guys had dropped. So we know that if we at least take first and second, we can get some good points. Their guys right now are poised to basically take third and fourth, and so and potentially even fourth and fifth, or third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. And so that's kind of what we're looking at, is how we can maximize the points we get at this moment. And so again, I'm pushing off the front, but I'm not pushing so that way I can drop them. I'm pushing to make them work. And so I'm kind of staying in the mid twos, mid to upper twos, just kind of, looking to see what they've got left as much as possible. And so as they catch up, again, just kind of holding where I'm at, Riz pops up in front of me and starts to push himself a little bit. And so I see Riz going off the front um, a little bit. So I push as well. And we just kind of, we're keeping the pressure on. We know that we've got um, Gaisier, I think his name is, not that far behind us. And so what we didn't want to do is ease so far back that he ends up catching up and it becomes 3-on-2. And so our focus was let's just keep the pressure on them. Let's not let them take essentially take control of the speed and slow us down. And so we were just going to keep pushing as hard as we can off the front in order to get to the finish. You see, I've got my arrow and I held on to it as long as I can because I know that I needed that for the sprint. I am is I'm basically wasting every match that I've got. While I'm not a huge fan of that analogy, at this point I am exhausting all my energy as much as possible. And so as we're starting to get out of the volcano, Riz and I are talking about how to handle the sprint. We know it's going to be two versus two sprint. Do we want to go at 700 meters? Do we want to wait as long as we can? I didn't think I could go at 700 meters, and so my initial thought was like, hey, let's wait a little bit longer, maybe go 500 meters and launch from there because that'll I felt like that was in the range that I could handle in terms of my sprint. And so as we start to enter or at least get to the Jarvis sprint, I'm looking at the distance, seeing that we've got 1.2. And again, I thought the sprint finish or the finish line was at the sprint. And so I'm going into this thinking like, all right, I'm watching the meters kind of, we're at a kilometer to go. I know we're going to be turning left here for the sprint. And I know the sprint line starts pretty quickly. So I'm thinking like, all right, the meters are going to start ticking down real quick. I'm off the front just because I don't want to be in a position where they launch and I have to, bridge up to them. So I figure if I'm off the front, I can at least launch as they come up to me and then keep going. And then all of a sudden, I see the 700-meter mark as I shift down into gears. I'm like, tell Riz, I'm like, all right, I'm getting ready to launch. I launch my aero boost and launch off the front, which, I really messed that up. I should have communicated better with Riz, let him know, like, hey, I feel good. I think I can go at 700. I thought this was the end. And as I crossed the line, I'm like, all right, we still got some distance to go. Where's the finish line? And that's really where mentally I was starting to hurt because I could not see where the finish line was at. And so I see Riz coming up behind me and he's telling me, just keep going, keep going. We're almost there. I'm looking at the meters count down. Riz comes up past me and I do my best to kind of stay close to him because I didn't want them to catch up. But ultimately, as we, get to the line here, um, I guess because it was such a long sprint, they end up just kind of, you know, not either not putting in the effort to catch us, or they just kind of like, what, the points wise, it doesn't matter if they cross first and second, because looking at the team positions, they are, in a really good spot. And so Riz and I cross the line first and second, and they come third and fourth with about a 5-ish second gap, which I was surprised that we had that much of a gap on them. Um, I know we pushed hard and pushed early, uh, and hopefully the dynamics, and I've got to check out Riz's race for this specifically, but hopefully the dynamics were that I launched, they pursued, and then Riz was able to kind of go through me or go through them to catch up to me, ultimately saving him some power on this 700-meter sprint. And so as we crossed the line, we're talking about how the finish went and kind of where everybody was at. We had Tommy, this was his first race with us. Him being a former triathlete brought some good power to the team and to the race. Ultimately, though, the Waffle Warriors really showcased an exceptional example of what good team tactics can do by really making us work hard up the Jarvis climb and really making that the determining spot where everything kind of split apart and ultimately ultimately splitting apart our team big time. They did a great job at, keeping their strong guys together and, splitting us apart, where, where we weren't kind of, we were expecting it, but, we didn't see it happen at the moment. And it just kind of, it kind of fell apart for us there, but we did our best. So, still a fantastic race. And really, again, as I say, every race, this is definitely one of the best races that we've had, but I know there's going to be great races up ahead in our future. So I will leave you there, and I hope you decide to, if you've not done club ladder races, I hope you decide to find a team, jump in there. It is fantastic racing. It is very hard racing, as you see today, because this is very different than your typical Zwift race or Zwift's racing series. So I will leave you guys with that and catch you on the next race.
Hey guys, it's Miguel from that thing you just watched. Hope you enjoyed that video, whether it was topic on nutrition or racing or a combination of both. Feel free to come back. I will continue to put out videos like this and continue to showcase what you can do with smart nutritional strategies, combining that with racing, because that is what this channel is all about. And feel free to check in if you want to see more racing. Click on wherever the link's at, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next race.